We all knew a reboot of Saints Row was coming. After 4, they left nowhere for the Saints to go after being the President of the United States, fighting off an alien invasion. Sure, with Get Out of Hell, they gave themselves an out with resetting the world. But the gaming landscape has changed since 2013, so a reboot was definitely needed. Ever since Saints Row the Third, the franchise has become split into two camps. The ones who enjoy the more grounded approach with 1 and 2, and the other being the overtop crazy that came with 3 and 4. But this reboot tried to bridge the gap between the two, but this approach leaves the game at odds with itself, and it doesn't know what it wants to be. Before I dig deep into the reboot, I wanted to give my tier list of the game so we know where I stand. Number 1 being Saints Row the Third. This is where Volition really came into their own. Made a great game, and I think a lot of us agree this is the best one. Number 2, Saints Row 2, a fantastic sequel from a somewhat okay first game, looking back at it now. This one showed some of the wacky stuff the series is known for. Number 3, Saints Row 4, this one jumped a shark with all the powers and crazy weapons. A great game, but definitely brought themselves into a corner. Number 4, Saints Row, the first GTA-like game that's on Xbox 360. A great game for the time, but it just doesn't hold up in today's world. I have a lot of nostalgia for this game, especially the multiplayer. 5th being Get Out of Hell, a side game, but easily the worst game in this franchise. I do enjoy the wacky stuff more, but there's something special about with a more grounded story. This reboot tries that and sort of fails at it. This reboot is coming off the heels of Agents of Mayhem, which is a critical and commercial flop. AOM will come up a bit because I felt like a lot of the DNA is in this reboot. I beat Agents of Mayhem twice, and I think it's quite good. If you want to learn more about Agents of Mayhem, I highly recommend DX's video, Agents of Mayhem, Volition's Finest. After the first trailer dropped, I was in the camp that was disappointed right off the bat. It looked like something Ubisoft was going to make. As Volition talked more about the game, I thought they were saying all the right things. Then came the launch, rough, buggy, mediocre reviews, so I skipped it until it went half price a couple patches later. I spent over 50 hours to 100% the game, and it has 2 major issues and a lot of content, so let's finally get into it. Saints Row has always been dependent on side content, and as time goes on and gaming changes, this becomes a negative, and this is true for this game. Reminds me of the first game, and it does make sense of the world in this reboot. Since we are establishing our rep in both this game and the first game. Side hustles, which replace the activities. Atcha is a fake Yelp review app, and when you give a place a bad review, you have to survive waves of enemies. The lower the rating, the more enemies you get. Riding shotgun is what replaced the drug dealer missions. Protect the driver as enemies tries to kill us. It's great since they don't have to stop anywhere and get potentially stuck. Shoplifting is stealing things via a helicopter magnet. And this one wastes robbing casinos that are in Santo Ileso, which is highly disappointing. I was like, really? They're just going to waste it there? Wingsuit Saboteur shows the potential of the wingsuit, but it gets pretty stale quickly because all of this is just going rooftop to rooftop, killing enemies and destroying satellites. Pony Express is easily the best side hustle in the game. We have to bring an item in different cars each time while evading cops, and if the cops get on your tail at the drop site, you will have to take care of them. Scattered around Santo Ileso are many collectibles, and with modern Volition fashion, if you drive past them, they'll stay on your map until you pick them up. Except for the items in the collectibles app, drug pallets, dumpster diving, photo hunt around the map, even some statues that are found in the app that are used to decorate the church. There's also hidden history, which provides backstory to Santo Ileso, and that's nice, but it's kind of annoying to find them all. There's also the Wanted app, which replaces the Hitman activity. There's no more waiting around for the right NPC to spawn. It's just little missions that are over pretty quickly. One of the major issues with the game, right from the start, you will know if you like it or not. Once I first started playing, I thought it felt like Agents of Mayhem, which isn't a bad thing because the combat in Agents of Mayhem was pretty great. The main issue here is the accuracy of all the guns. They're so bad until you have enough money to level them up. To me, there's only 2 worthwhile weapons, and that's the starting pistol and the K8. This game also brings in perks and skills, which is most likely another Agents of Mayhem holdover into design philosophy. I don't know what they were thinking about adding these in, because most of the skills are useless. The ones I used were the most was the vampire one, where you can, if you do damage, you get your health back, and Death Blossom, where you spin around with the dual SMGs. The Fire Punch, the Landmine are good ones for early game. You unlock perks by completing challenges, and most of the perks are pretty lackluster. But at least we don't have to do all the challenges for an achievement this time. The Panteros and Idols pose no threat with this lackluster combat system, but when fighting Marshall, there's issues because how much damage they output, and the way we have to recover health via takedowns is a bit of an issue sometimes. I wish they kept the regen health or health items to gain it back in combat. There are some shielded enemies, specialist mini-bosses, which add some variety, but still a letdown from Agents of Mayhem combat. With the takedowns, you'll be invincible when you do them, and all the enemies will stand around. But if they didn't let you be invincible there, it would have been super annoying. So the other main issue with the game is a pretty big one at that. We play as the boss, and along with our 3 friends, Eli, Kev, and Nina, we decided to start the Saints after getting fired from working at Marshall. Kev has ties to the Idols. Nina used to roll with the Panteros. The starter arcs in this game go way too quickly, and it feels like we barely get any time to feel like we need to get revenge or get a sense of friendship between our friends. The game starts off with us getting betrayed, and I thought that was a mistake. I was always wondering who it would be, and it's kind of obvious. At the end of the game, there's a whole section where you need to save our friends after the betrayal, but we barely had any meaningful interactions with them. There are some hints of it here and there. They even talk about their past, and we never get to see it. So we need to actually see those interactions so we can care for the characters. I feel like having 3 factions, 4 if you count the police, is too much in today's standards. Even in past games, 1 or 2 factions get the short end of the stick, like West Side Rollers and Saints 1. I would have preferred it if the Idols were the main gang and we had to take out 6 of the collective, and maybe halfway through the game Marshall steps in to control the chaos. In this game, the rival bosses get killed unceremoniously or in side activities. Like, why would we kill part of the collective in side missions? Seems a bit strange to do that. There are a few standout missions like going overboard and train robbery, but they are starting to rely on licensed music during hype moments. But when most of the big missions, if not all, it loses that impact. The vast majority of playtime is going to be starting and finishing criminal ventures, which is a great idea. I really like this part of the game. Making businesses, creating a criminal empire. And while some of them are fine, like Shady Oaks, which is insurance fraud, or the big one, which is Mayhem, most of them are fetch quests. It feels like busy work, as the boss should really be doing this for Planet Saints. Do we really have to hijack 12 trucks and bring it back? The biggest disappointment was let's pretend that was a heist venture, and what do we get to do? Take pictures and fend off cops with AI buddies start to stealing. The standout venture was LARPing with Eli, but with the combat that is dragged down. They should have switched it up, something like Life is Strange True Colors with its LARP section. It turns into a turn-based RPG. The question I've been asking myself while playing this game, do the Saints really have to take over the city in each game? These are some things that are a bit annoying and I didn't know where to put them. The music is disappointing. Sure, on each station there are some bangers and it doesn't feel like a cohesive soundtrack like the past games. Now that could just be nostalgia talking, but even my friends said it wasn't a great soundtrack. As a fan of metal, it's quite annoying our station is named after the real record label Nuclear Blast. Maybe there's a deal to get it cheaper or something. They should have just made it something weak like the Graveyard or something. LB not being run and not having a sprint meter was messing with my muscle memory. Having the phone is where we do everything is nice and convenient, but every time I finish the mission or an activity, I'm constantly opening to look at the map or to start other missions. The other games were fine, having us drive to mission markers that were on the map already, so we can just drive to them. We can start a mission from our phone, but most of the time we still have to drive to the church or a different location. There's a great game hidden in here somewhere. With the recently announced 2023 roadmap, there is hope they can turn it around with new story missions and the combat overhaul, more quality of life updates, and it seems like they're listening to all the feedback they have gotten. The only thing a bit strange is them adding new districts, which will be free for everybody. The game is already big enough, and not sure where they'll place them. Was this always the plan, and that's why there's so much empty space in the desert? Are there going to be more activities to do there? Because after you beat the game and do everything, there's nothing really to do. Now, this is always been the case, but I really hope they start taking ideas from Mafia or GTA with the way the world is and the story. I'll come back in August and see what has changed. Volition has a great team. I hope they stick to the guns. And the one biggest thing about this game, it doesn't have Johnny Gat, so the game is actually fantastic. Go play it. That last part is a bit of a joke, but I'm glad they didn't do anything that has ties to the past games. Sure, there's references here and there, but that's fine. I really hope they can stick to the guns and just not have, and like wipe the slate clean. Just continue with these characters in this world, because they can do it. They just need the time. Supposedly they're under Gearbox now instead of Deep Silver, so in my mind that's a good change. We'll see what happens there. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and comment down below if you like the game, if you hate the game, if you're planning on playing it. And I'll see you in the next video.